Welcome back to The Big Picture. My guest is Calabrese, and we're talking about the election. And now let's talk about what's happening nationally. There's kind of a split. The Senate stays with the Republicans and Trump, and the House has gone over to Nancy Pelosi, and she's smiling ear to ear. What do you think? Now she came out and she's all about kumbaya. Let's get together. Let's cooperate. Let's be nice and have unity. Somehow that doesn't sound like Nancy Pelosi.
No.
So as the days go on, let's see what happens. I have a feeling that's not going to last too long.
No, it's not going to last too long at all. I mean, the Democrats have been very clear what they're going to do if they take control. Congressman Nadler from New York has said if he becomes chairman of the Judiciary Committee, which he will now, that he intends to open up impeachment investigations on not just Donald Trump, but also Brett Kavanaugh. Maxine Waters will be in charge of the Banking Committee. She's already said that she's going to be, bringing bank executives in front for all kinds of investigations. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to either spend their time the next 2 years investigating the administration or legislating. And which one they pick will determine whether they keep that majority in 2020. But my actions speak louder than words, but right now their words are all that it's going to be very, very confrontational.
Well, in the past 2 years, the stock market has done well. Unemployment is at an all-time low. Women are employed at the highest rate. African American and Hispanic unemployment is at an all-time low. I mean, everything, all the economic indicators are doing terrific.
No
Gross
question.
domestic product is doing great. And internationally, we're doing good.
Yes.
I mean, North Korea, South Korea are talking peace. The missiles aren't flying. The nuclear threat is so far controlled. We'll wait and see on that. The trade wars, the tariffs. As a businessman, he's actually making headway. I mean, he's taking something that wasn't fair because we weren't charging high tariffs and all of our trading partners were, so we were kind of getting raked over the coals. He's correcting that, and they're coming to the table. They're actually coming to the, not a lot of people are reporting that, but he is actually getting our trade partners to cooperate. Okay, so that's all good stuff. If over the next 2 years we don't get anything accomplished, if there's a standstill, okay, and everything stagnates, is that going to backfire, or is because of the media and because of the noise, are the Democrats not going to be held accountable?
Oh, I think Donald Trump will hold him accountable, no doubt. And he has certainly learned how to go around the media to speak to his base. And if nothing gets accomplished, I think you'll see a replay of the 1948 presidential campaign where Harry Truman beat up the Republican Congress as a do-nothing Congress. That was his whole campaign. I could see that being replayed again. But you're right, under normal circumstances, Republicans should have gained yesterday, both in the House and in the Senate, in a normal year, because of everything you mentioned. But the left in this country has been in a rage since election night 2016 with the election of Donald Trump. And he's stoked it too, let's be honest. I mean, he loves to tweak and troll his opponents, and he's a master at it, and they take the bait every time. But in the process, you've had this turmoil, this political turmoil. Now, the danger here was a great danger. For the last year, all the polls showed that the Democrat base's enthusiasm for voting this election was sky high. And the Republican base had pretty much checked out. They were not interested in voting in this election. And the gap between what's called the enthusiasm gap was double digit. It wasn't until the Kavanaugh hearings that Republican fuse was lit, and then followed by the caravan. And it came up to almost equal the Democrat enthusiasm and turnout. But if it had not been for those two events, the Kavanaugh hearings and the caravan, this would have been a blue wave. It would have been a massive blue wave.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the the Republicans react when Trump is investigated and raked over the coals and his agenda is disturbed. I mean, that's going to...
He's already signaled today, I read today, that he's already said to Nancy Pelosi, congratulations, and if you decide that you're going to investigate me and my administration from now until 2020, fine. I'm going to start investigating all of the leaks of intelligence information that came from your house. And we can do that in the Senate. So, I mean, this is a guy who likes to fight, and he hits, when he gets hit, he hits back 2 and 3 times. And they ought to be careful about that, because he will follow through on those kinds of threats. But again, back to the election. This was a very normal election in terms of a first-term president facing his first midterm. The average loss of the party in power at this cycle is about 33 seats. As of today, the Democrats picked up 26. They may get to 30, but it's really in that average. They picked up 3 seats in the Senate, and that could go to 5. The Democrats had hoped to pick up 12 to 15 governorships. They picked up, as of today, 7. And they had hoped to flip 10 legislative chambers around the country. And again, at this point, it's about 4. So there was a lot of underperformance there, but obviously they got control of the House, and that's the big dynamic that's going to go forward.
Well, the Democrat Party has gone towards the left very heavily in the last few years with Bernie Sanders and Cortez in New York. You know, Elizabeth Warren. That far left wing of the party has dominated for a long time now, and if it goes in that direction, I don't know that it's in sync with the majority of the country, even with the Democrats in the country. Is that going to be a bad omen for the Democrats?
Well, you're right. This country has always been, and I think still continues to be, at the national level, slightly right of center. Okay, but elections are about turnout, and it's about energizing your base. And right now, about 30% of Democrats identify themselves as socialist. Now, a lot of them are young people, and I have to question whether they even know what that means. Okay, I really do.
Public education.
Exactly right. That's another issue. But 30% define themselves as socialists, and in total, 60% define themselves as progressives, which is pretty far left in its own right. And that, as I say, that's where the energy is. That's where the money comes from. And right now, they're kind of in the driver's seat and got their foot on the accelerator for the Democrat Party in terms of its agenda and the way it approaches issues. So we'll see how far left they go, and if other forces can get them a little bit more towards the center approaching 2020. But that's an open question.
Well, it's interesting because everybody, you know, all the Democrats in the Senate who voted against Kavanaugh, who came from red states, every one of them lost.
That's correct.
The only Democrat who voted for Kavanaugh was Joe Manchin, and he won.
And he won.
So that kind of tells you a little bit about, you know, the influence that had and where people's minds are.
And the other thing I heard is in the Northeast, at the House level, congressional level, that every Republican who voted against the tax cut and who voted not to repeal Obamacare, they all lost as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and interestingly, the polls that I've seen, healthcare was either at the top or the second from the top in terms of how important the issues were.
Yeah, and Republicans really shied away from that, and I think they made a strategic mistake. I mean, the health plan that's on the table now is Bernie Sanders legislation. If you read it, I'll tell you exactly where it is. In Section 801, Section 801 clearly says that private health insurance will be banned, will be outlawed. You can't have it anymore. Now, you've got 175 million people in this country that have some type of private health care from employers and other sources who are very, and 75 to 80% of them are very happy with it. People don't understand what single payer means is your health plan is gone. Forget President Obama, if you like your plan, you can keep it. Well, we knew that was fun. Now they don't even attempt to hide it. It's Section 801 of the Bernie Sanders legislation clearly says you cannot have a private health care. Everybody's got to go into the government pool. We should be, as Republicans, we should be talking about that. We should be engaging that, not shying away from that. But yet we do. We're a timid party. Republicans have always been timid, I think primarily because of the beating they take in the media. Well, Trump has shown that you go ahead, take the beating, because there's ways now you can talk to people without relying on the mainstream media and make your point.
Well, that's the key is information and education, because an educated voter, is the best friend, actually, of the Republican and the conservative, because the issues, I'm not trying to be biased here, but truly the Republicans tend to run on issues, and the Democrats, certainly in this election, tend to run on character assassination and emotion, and we hate Trump. We hate, he's a bad guy, he's a woman hater, he's a racist, and so on. They tend to, get the base excited because of that character flaw, and so on.
Yeah, and the left and the media's constant assault on conservatives as being, all the isms, the deplorable list that Hillary Clinton, that we're all racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, all those things. That is such an insult, and I frankly am tired of that and insulted by that and offended by that, and I think I speak for a lot of people who, just because you disagree with someone on the left, you immediately get called one of those names. And I tell them, listen, why don't you just lower your voice and strengthen your argument? That might be a better way to have this conversation.
Well, we're running out of time now. That's pretty much it for this segment. As always, talking about politics is an interesting subject, and we will have Carl back again, I'm sure, to analyze things. The message, again, is to listen to the media, but analyze where they're coming from and what they're trying to tell you and why. Because the message is important, but you have to understand who's telling you and why they're telling you that. And sometimes there's agendas behind that message. You always have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Anyway, that's it for this segment. I thank Carl Calabrese for being my guest. Thanks for watching The Big Picture, and thanks so much for watching WBBZ-TV. We'll see you next time.